Hi, my name is Dillon. I've been an agent for 25 years and I have 5-star reviews from every client in my career. I wanted to make this video because I tell my clients that through negotiations and good negotiations, I can save them my commission really on any deal as compared to an average agent. And I wanted to focus this video on that and how I do that. Uh, just to get the early things out of the way, obviously, when choosing an agent, you should do the following, which is make sure they have at least 10 or 15 years experience. Make sure they're not like taking photos with their phone. It should be a professional photographer. They should be getting the property on over 100 websites, social media. It should be on the local MLS. And yeah, the marketing, to be honest with you, is the easiest part of my job. It really is. It was different 25 years ago when I started. Now, if anyone's got a ton of experience, I also should have mentioned they should have all 5-star reviews from every client in their career. That's really hard to find too. I take a ton of pride in having that. But yeah, the marketing is super easy at this point, and it was different back in the day. And now getting it on 100 websites is a piece of cake. It doesn't take me a lot of time. The house does have a responsibility. The house does have to interest people. So when I have a professional photographer sent out there to take pictures, and I advise you on minimal things that you can do to make it look good, clean it, and just make it look attractive for the photos. The photos do have to attract a person. So that is the responsibility of the home. You got to make it look as good as possible. And someone has to look at those photos and look at the price, and they have to say to themselves, I want to see this house in person. Then it's my job, once they try to schedule a showing or come to my open house, to let them know what our separating factors are. So what are the things that separate your house from, or your condo or your townhouse or your vacant lot from any of the other ones in the area and with a similar price range. So really, really important. For as soon as somebody walks into my open house, I say, hey, I'm Dillon Courier. Great to meet you. I work for this real estate broker, and here are some of our separating factors that you should know before you walk through the house. So in conjunction with you, I'll have all that information and make sure that they know it. So that is my responsibility. Then the responsibility of the house really kicks in. So then at some point, then the person, I'll invite them to just take a look around and let me know if they have any questions. So then they have to walk through your house and they have to say to themselves organically, I want to buy this house. That really has to come between the house and them. Then they have to turn to me or their agent and they have to say, let's submit an offer on this house. Once they do that and I receive an offer, then I feel like the majority of the agent's value kicks in. So there are 4 things that I'm negotiating on your behalf. And my goal when negotiating all 4 of those things is, when you add up how well I negotiated those 4 things compared to an average agent, that at least covers my commission. You know, so I want to get into those 4 things, and yeah. So first one I'm going to do is offers, and I'll give you the full list now and then dive into each one. Second thing I negotiate on your behalf, buyer agent commission. Third thing, inspection issues. Fourth thing, if we don't appraise. So I'm going to get into each one of these. How we negotiate offers is incredibly important. So your property should only be listed, in my opinion, on a Wednesday or Thursday. That's it. We want to give people 2 days during the week to see the property and 2 days on the weekend to see the property. We want to take all offers until Monday at noon. So I oftentimes hear people say, I listed a property and got asking price in the first 24 hours and we crushed it. We did a great job. Couldn't be happier with my agent. We're closing in a month. And I shake my head. I actually, I don't. I keep it to myself, but I inwardly shake my head and think to myself, they probably made a mistake. They probably sold it for too little. So if any of my clients receive asking price in the first 24 hours, I generally tell them, do not take that. Usually that means more offers are coming, better offers are coming. So that's kind of what I expect. Is I want to get asking price in the first 24 hours. that's when I sell properties for way more than asking price. So, but again, your house has to bring me offers. If it doesn't bring me any offers, if I receive zero offers, I have no way of negotiating. I cannot force someone to buy your property. So let me cover that right now. So if the house is listed for a week and we don't get any offers, I would say about 70 to 80% of active buyers consider it in that first week. Look at the pictures online, decide whether they want to see it in person. And then the next week, the large majority of the rest of those active buyers on the market will go see it or consider it online. So after 2 weeks, almost all the active buyers have, if you don't have an offer, have said, no, I'm not interested in this. After 3 or 4 weeks, at that point, I'd advise any of my clients to start lowering the price. So maybe you give it a month. I don't think you need to give it any longer than that. If it's on a month, we don't receive any offers, you're probably overpriced. And then at that point, I'd advise anyone to lower the price. If we receive one offer, so let's cover each option. If we receive one offer, the only thing I can do is the following. So an agent's going to reach out to me. Let's say we listed on a Wednesday or Thursday. Let's say we receive no offers. Let's say the open house comes. I do the open house. I reach out to everyone that went to the open house, and one agent says, Dillon, I think I'm going to send you an offer. And then let's say it's Sunday night. Our deadline's Monday at noon. And that one agent finally sends an offer. And I know that no other offers are coming in. The only way to negotiate that is the agent's going to call me and say, hey, Dillon, send you an offer. And their follow-up question is going to always be, do you have any other offers? And I never think you should lie to another person, so I don't do that. But my answer to that question is pretty much always the same, which is, yes, I believe more offers are coming. All right, so we are not lying at all. But we're never going to tell an agent that, no, we have no offers coming. We have no interest, because what that tells them is they can make a very, very lowball offer. So I say, yes, I believe more offers are coming. And I say, tell your buyer that my seller doesn't want to mess around with back and forth negotiations. And so tell them to come with their very highest and best right off the bat. And so what we're trying to do is build urgency there and get them as high as they're going to go or as close to that as possible. Okay, so that's how I handle one offer, is again, doing that, building urgency and trying to get them as high as possible. 2 offers or more, multiple offer situation is the way you sell a property for the most money possible. So critically important that the property looks good. It's priced right. So I advise people, so never overprice a property. You're never going for the goal. You're trying to hit the goal with multiple offers. So price the property at market value. Generally, you want to price in $50,000 increments because people do their searches in $50,000 increments. And let's say we receive, I was talking to a client, I just got off the phone with a client who, or actually I'll do my most recent deal. My most recent deal, we listed this one at $450. We thought our best case scenario was it'd sell for about $465. And I told them people generally do their searches in $50,000 increments. So if we can price it $450, it's going to help us a lot, because as soon as you go just above $450 or any $50,000 or $100,000 increment, you lose people. You lose people that it doesn't pop up on their search. So I'd always tell people, never price at like $455 or $805 or $910, whatever. Always be in that $50,000 or $100,000 increment, because hopefully that gets us an additional offer or 2. And then if you have a really, really good agent that can drive those offers up, that gets you to the number that you ultimately wanted to be at. So I sell in, I've sold properties this year up to $3 million. So any price range, I'm just going to use this latest deal. It's my latest Google review from when this video came out. And I think it makes the case. So I'll use that. So with this property, we thought it was worth around 465. I told them I'll list it 465 if you want, but just so you know, you might want to consider 450 because that could get us multiple offers. 465 might get us 0 or 1 offer. That would be worse, much worse. And they thought about it and they said, yeah, let's do that. We agree. So listed at 450. Within 24 hours, we had 450. I told them they were already prepared for it. They've heard this conversation from me. And so they said, yep, Dillon, we agree with what you said before. Let's not accept it. Let's say no and ask them to wait. We did that. They said, we'll wait. And after the open house, we got a 470. So we had a 450 and a 470. So now we have a multiple offer situation. This is how you sell a property for the most money possible. My number one responsibility as your agent is to negotiate the most money for you every step of the way while still keeping the deal alive. So really, really important. If your agent has any other answer other than that, if they say their most important responsibility is marketing, that is not true. It is negotiating. And so this is how I handled that. So we had a 450 and a 470. I'm not allowed to disclose the terms of other offers to each other unless my seller gives me permission. So 99% of agents, as far as I know, what I've seen in my past, the way they handle this multiple offer situation, if they got you this far, is they would reach out to everybody and say, guys, we have a multiple offer situation. I can't give you any of the details. Now tell your client this and ask them to give us our final highest and best. That is traditionally how every agent I know does it. You don't have to do it that way. So I can do it this way, which is how I handle all of my deals when I get in a multiple offer situation, is I reach out to the lowest offers and I say, I have my seller's permission to tell you this. My seller has told me to tell you this. You are too low. We're not going to accept your offer. My seller, again, has told me to tell you that our current high is this. In this case, our current high was 470. So your 450 isn't going to happen. Talk to your buyer and tell them this and get them at least at 470 to stand any chance. Okay. Usually when I do that, they come up to 475, 480, 490, whatever. In this case, they couldn't afford it anymore. They didn't come up at all. So then at that point, I went back to our 470 and I said, I can't give you any information because my seller has told me not to do that, but we have multiple offers. Give me your final highest and best. And they came back with 500, $50,000 above asking price. And that deal for me closed not too long ago. And it ended up closing with 42,000 more than asking price because they had a bunch of things wrong after the inspection and we had to give them an $8,000 credit for those things. But still got 42,000 above asking price on a $400,000 house, 10% more than what it's worth. So that negotiating strategy alone on how I handled offers, I know for sure was much better than any other agent and easily covered my commission. I think my commission on this deal is like $12,000 or something, or so easily just on that alone. Then that's just one part of my negotiation. But with that being said, really, really important, your house really needs to be priced right, and that is market value to bring me multiple offers so I have the power to do this. All right. So we should both know what your property is worth. I want you doing as much research on this as me. I'm going to send you comps for your property on, what is recently sold in the area that's similar. I want you to look at what is for sale. That's your competition. Those are the unsuccessful sales, the for sales, especially if they've been on the market for more than a month. So you should look at those. And I want you to know your market just as well as I do and make sure that we are both on the same page as far as pricing at market value. Okay. So that's one. How do we negotiate offers? Three other ones we have to cover. These are going to be a little bit quicker. Okay. Second one, buyer agent commission is now negotiable. So I should say it this way. I am no longer allowed as a seller agent to advertise what my seller is willing to pay a buyer agent on my marketing. That's not allowed. However, on 99% of my deals, still, even though this law was passed last year, and I would guess 99% of most agents' deals, the seller is still paying the buyer's agent. So when you buy a property, you pay no agent. That is because the seller, throughout all of my 25-year career, the seller has always paid buyer agent and seller agent. So when you buy, you pay no agent. When you sell, you paid both agents. So that is generally been exactly the same for me since this law passed. The difference is I can't put on my marketing what you're willing to pay a buyer's agent. So buyer's agents, what they do is they shoot me a text message and say, "Hey Dillon, can I show this property?" Say tomorrow at noon. I say yes. Their next text message usually is, "What is your seller willing to pay me for my commission?" And most agents answer that. I actually don't even ask my sellers this. I honestly don't want to know. I want my goal again is to negotiate the best I possibly can every step of the way while still keeping the deal alive. And for me, I don't need to know what my seller is willing to pay a buyer's agent. So what I say to them is, I should say this. Most agents say to them, when somebody asks, "What is your seller willing to pay me?" Most agents say, "My seller is willing to pay you X, this amount, 2.5%, 3%, whatever," because they've had a conversation with them about it. What I say is, bring me an offer. Bring me an offer. We are negotiable. If your offer is great, my seller will probably pay more of your commission. If your offer is terrible, they'll probably pay less of your commission. But bring me an offer. We're negotiable. And some agents push back on that, especially long-term agents that are lifers. But most agents now accept that. That's part of it. So, and then with that, we are waiting to get that offer. And then when we receive that offer, we are negotiating that. So if they ask me in the offer for 2.5%, I'm always going to ask them, I'm always going to counter with less. So I'm definitely not guaranteeing anyone 0% to the buyer's agent, 1% also very, very hard. Most of my sellers end up paying 2. They usually ask us for 2.5 or 3, and we end up paying 2. But yeah, even if I save someone 0.5% or 1%, well, on $1 million listing, that's saving them 1% is $10,000. So yeah, saving them 0.5% is $5,000. So that means something. So, okay, that's my goal. It's how I negotiate buyer agent commission. And then we got 2 more. The inspection issues. So every house has inspection issues. Your house, even if it's new construction, the inspector will find some things. My job is to walk a fine line of getting the most money for you every step of the way while still keeping the deal alive. So again, I can't kill a deal. So there's going to be times maybe where the inspection comes back and there's 4-point issues that are wrong with it, where I advise you to fix those things. So say there's like old plumbing or electrical, or the HVAC is 15 years old, or the roof is 25 years old. That stuff is negotiable, but you're going to have to kick in something for your 4-point stuff. But a lot of times there's a lot of agents out there where, let's say it's a 20-year-old roof, or whatever, a 15 or 20-year-old roof. And there's a lot of agents where they'll tell their client, you have to pay for the whole thing. And I don't say that. I don't think you necessarily have to. You might, but I don't think we should start there when we're negotiating. So if I have a client with a 15-year-old roof and there's still 5 years left on it as far as the insurance company is concerned, and they ask us to replace the entire roof, they ask for a $15,000, $20,000 credit to replace the roof, I'll negotiate that. I'll counter with something else and see what they have to say. All right, so that's inspection issues. So I mean, in inspection issues, I've had inspections come back with where they ask for nothing. I've had inspections come back, old houses where they asked me for $25,000 credit, and we had to negotiate that down. So, all right, that's the third one. Last thing, appraisal. If we don't appraise. So let's just use easy round numbers. So let's say it's $1 million listing. Let's say I sold it for $1,050,000. The appraiser is then going to reach out to me and say, hey, Dillon, I have to appraise this property. They work for a third-party independent lender. Has nothing to do with me or the other agent or the buyer or the seller. They work for a lender. And they're going to call me and say, Dillon, can I take a look at the property such and such a time and day? I'll say yes, sure, as long as my seller is okay with it. And then I'll follow up and say, do you mind if I email you some comps? And some appraisers will say no to this, but most of them will say, yeah, sure, no problem. Like that doesn't hurt my job. That helps my job. That saves me some time if I can rely on your comps too. And yeah, so really, really important. Not only am I emailing them comps to justify our price. Again, in this example, our price is $1,050,000. So really, really important is I need similar homes that have sold in the area in the last 12 months, similar square footage, similar quality on the inside, and for that price or higher, and relatively close by, right? I think I said that. So I'll email those off to him to justify our price. There are times though where the appraiser comes back and is like, Dillon, I ran the numbers myself. I even looked at your comps. I can't justify $1,050,000. The best I can justify is $1 million. The appraisal is for $1 million. In that case, after all the things that we've been through in this deal, the buyer still has the right, if it doesn't appraise, to come back to us and say, we now want you to lower the price to $1 million, $50,000 less. If they do, that's a $50,000 negotiation between myself and the other agent. So cutting that off at the pass is incredibly important. So how do we do that? So before I accept an offer, I'm going to reach out to the agent, the buyer's agent, and I'm going to say, especially if I'm afraid we're not going to appraise, I'm going to reach out to this agent and say, I am afraid this isn't going to appraise. What's going to happen if it doesn't? Are you guys going to kick in the money? Are you going to ask us to kick in the money? What's going to happen? And usually the agent will say, Dillon, don't worry about it. Like, I don't think we're going to have any issues with the appraisal. Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it if it comes up. So then my counter to that is, okay, then will you guys add a gap clause to the contract? So I'm afraid there's a chance this is going to appraise just for $1 million. Will you guys kick in a gap clause where you say for the first 50,000 that it doesn't appraise, you'll cover it, rather than ask us to cover it? And some agents will say yes, some agents will say no. But at least I had that conversation with them. And then if it doesn't appraise, I can go back to them and say, hey, we had this conversation and you said you guys would kind of figure it out on your own, just making sure you're not going to ask us to kick in any money on this, that your buyers are going to kick in the 50,000 to make this deal work with their financing or whatever. So yeah, and I could go on and on for much, much longer, and I won't because this video has been incredibly long, but there are many, many, many places where agents are negotiating on your behalf. And I think that's where we really, really earn our money. So that's it. Appreciate the time that everyone spent watching this. Reach out to me if you want any help selling your home. Thanks.